guys. Welcome to the Cultivate and Keep podcast. This is Jeremy.
And this is Corey.
And this is when we talk about what it means to be a Christian as a man.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about Psalm 84. So a few weeks ago, I was doing my devotions, and recently I've been going through the Psalms, and I came across this chapter, and I remembered that a couple months ago, I sat in on a meeting with the senior pastor of our church, Mark Hoffman. And
shout out to Mark.
Yeah, shout out to Mark.
He's genius.
And he so anyway, we walked through this chapter together, and hearing Mark's perspective on it was really cool. You know, whenever I read, I often make notes and I highlight and make comments, and I think I have, you know, decent things to point out and say, but hearing like Mark's perspective and from Mark's words was just really different. And so
it's a whole other level.
Yeah. I mean, and so anyway, that whole meeting, Mark went through verse by verse and kind of dissected the whole chapter. And I took notes on everything that he said. And so I was talking with Corey, and we figured we wanted to do an episode where we went through Psalm 84. And if you haven't read this chapter, I mean, there's a lot of good Psalms, but this is, I think, one of my favorites. Basically, it's when David simply talks about like his, you know, always yearning and longing for the presence of God daily. And so I know most of the Psalms are about that, but this one, he really just dives into that. So we thought it would be a good one to talk about.
And besides, like, you know, us talking through a topic or answering questions or bringing on a guest, we thought it'd be awesome too to just go over scripture and just to do sort of your kind of Bible study-esque kind of study, but not so formal like a lecture, you know, more of just kind of us talking through it. But I like this especially too because it's a psalm, and I feel like a lot of psalms are more poetic in nature, and it's written in a way that it's like not so literal, you know what I mean? It's not so easily like understood kind of what the whole purpose of it is. So I feel like when you read a psalm, it's like, wow, that was a really good scripture, but then like you need to really dig in to get the meat of it and the substance of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. So when I would read the Psalms, I would have my understanding, my interpretation, which again I think was okay, what I thought.
Right.
And it is. I mean, I understood what's going on, but I think hearing at least Mark's perspective was just deeper and the real meat of what's going on, and just small things like his vocabulary he would use to describe certain things. It brought a whole new perspective, and so I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, let's get into it.
Okay.
I'm excited. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's Psalm 84, and I believe the verses that we're reading for are 1 through 12. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're going to break these up into chunks and kind of talk about it that way. It'll be easier. But Psalm 84, 1 through 4 says, "How lovely are your dwelling places, O Lord of hosts. My soul longed and even yearned for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God. The bird also has found a house, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young, even your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. How blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you." So
my translation is a little bit different. So I think that's good though, because I'll have a different spin on it from what you would read. So the first 4 verses, kind of like your typical psalm, like, you know, it's David saying, you know, Lord, I long for your presence, long to be in your house, long to sing to you. And it's, again, that typical pattern that a psalm would follow. But a few things that Mark pointed out that I liked about this first chunk was, first of all, he really emphasized that it's a daily yearning for God, which, you know, we know that that's not like new groundbreaking information, but I think that's not really how we live. You know, we hear these things and we know them, but I think for most of us, it's sporadic yearning for God, or it's when we're in need, or we're hurting, or it's been a rough week, or whatever it may be. It's not consistent. It's not daily. And so I think remembering that it has to be a daily just wanting God, and a daily realization of, okay, today, God, I need you. I want your presence. I don't want to come to you when I'm hurting, but just I want to live my day in your presence. I think remembering that perspective is good, and it's life-giving, and it's encouraging.
Yeah, totally. I think also, I mean, it kind of touches on this theme of just like an appetite for God. And the thing that stands out for me is just how like infatuated, I think it's David, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, like, sorry, am I stealing your thunder here?
It's all you. Go for it.
But I mean, really, like, I'm trying to imagine myself speaking this way to God, and it's challenging because what I say, how lovely are your dwelling places, O Lord of hosts. My soul longed and even yearned for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy. Like, those are really deep and really excited words that David is using. In the end, he says, how blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. So it's almost like he's jealous. You know what I mean? Like, he's so longing, he's so passionate just about this. And really it's just kind of this theme of his appetite for God was so big and he was so hungry for it that he just like couldn't help but exclaim.
Yeah, it's like he was in a place of need for God, but not need out of like he was hurting and like desperate. I think he simply just had a strong want for God. And he desired God.
And that's also, like you said, it's the daily appetite. It's not just I've been starving myself spiritually for so long and now I'm crying out to God out of desperation. But it's every day he's desperate, he's hungry, and he's crying out for God.
Yeah, that reminds me. I don't know if we're going to talk about this later, but reminded me that. So verse 4, he talks about. So the last part of the verse, my translation says that those who dwell in your house are ever praising you. And one thing I've realized recently through reading the Psalms, which I think I've recognized before, but recently has been more, I kind of in the forefront that could stick out to me, is that most of the Psalms, he says that. He talks about praising the Lord and shouting praises and worshiping. And what I've also noticed is it often starts about like in the morning. He'll say, when I arise, I praise you. In the morning, I sing songs to you. And I will declare your goodness. And I think it's important to remember, it's good to have these thoughts of being thankful and wanting to be in God's presence and desiring God. But I think it's another thing to declare it and to shout it and to sing it and to praise it. And so, I don't know, I wanted to point that out. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think there's something special about the morning. Like, it's not like you have to, but I think that is interesting that there's sort of a theme there.
Yeah, it kind of got me like almost convicted, like to be someone that like enjoys the morning. And for me, I'm naturally probably more of like a morning person than a night person.
I'm not.
You're not. But
I want to be desperately.
It got me thinking like I want to be someone that like I love the mornings and I wake up and I'm going to read and, soak this in and praise and sing. And that's probably easier for me to do naturally rather than you. I know you've said it's hard, but if that's not you, like try to develop that,
Yeah. Even if it's just small, but that's definitely a good one there. The next section. Okay. So now verses 5 through 7, I'm going to try to say, O Lord of hosts. That's a hard one to say, but he says, how blessed is the man whose strength is in you, and whose heart are the highways to Zion. Passing through the valley of Baca, they make it a spring. The early rain also covers it with blessings. They go from strength to strength. Every one of them appears before God in Zion.
The phrase "whose hearts are the highways to Zion." What comes to your mind when you hear that?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I know
kind
that
of a weird like little sentence.
Yeah. Well, the two phrases there, Zion and Baca, but Zion I know is sort of like a heavenly place, right? So like the highways to heaven.
Yeah. So when I I'll just skip that. No. When I heard it, like was sitting in with Mark, like in my like more basic understanding, I had an idea and I thought that can't be it. That's too simple. I thought, okay, that just means like how to meet with God. Basically, it's kind of what I thought. And then sure enough, like Mark said that, and I was like, oh, like cool. Like, so Mark's interpretation was basically that in your heart, how to find God's dwelling place daily. Like, how to meet with him in your heart. And I think that's cool. Like, whose hearts are the highway to Zion, or whose hearts are the highways to meeting with God. And like, I literally picture like a highway, like going from my home to downtown. And I think of like, just the freeway. And like, what if it was that easy to manifest God's presence, to simply just know like what to do in your mind and in your heart, like how to get yourself to that place of just entering into his presence and like being with him like on a daily basis. And again, when I'm saying this, I'm not thinking of like, oh, Sunday morning at church. I'm thinking, hey, I'm on my way to work and I'm driving, and in my heart I know what to do to get myself to a place of being in God's presence. And I think it's a cool spin on it.
Yeah, I think that also, I mean, similarly to the last passage where he's basically just singing and shouting, like he already has that connection. It's almost like now he's describing how he got to that place, and that he built a highway to God, and that he knows every day how to get in touch with God, how to connect with him, how to get himself to a place of being full of praise and being full of thanksgiving and being full of excitement and hunger for God.
Yeah.
And so that highway maybe is like a metaphor for your devotion and your habit of meeting with God.
Yeah. Another note I have in here was when he talks about like how to do that daily. He says the key for that was to have a heart that's ever praising God. And that's one thing that Mark said was, if we're going to have a heart that's like our heart, knows how to meet with God, then the key to that is daily praising him and daily connecting with him in that way.
Yeah. The original, I don't want to like go down a rabbit hole here, but the original kind of...
It's rabbit trail.
Is it rabbit trail? No, rabbit hole.
No, rabbit trail.
It's definitely rabbit hole. Rabbits go into holes.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
I don't think so, but...
And Winnie the Pooh... Oh, wait, that's Piglet. I don't know. Okay, anyways.
Interesting.
Yeah, derailed.
Rabbit hole. It might be, actually. I could be wrong.
Okay, well, we're going to go down this rabbit hole. And the original kind of interpretation I had for this was I thought maybe it was like a symbolic description of our kind of journey to heaven.
Which that could be a take on it.
Yeah, maybe
this isn't the like end all, but...
Right. Because it's interesting. He talks about... Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on a pilgrimage. And then sort of, I don't know if you want to go into this, but he says, as they pass through the valley of Baca, I was like, what the heck is that? And I looked it up, and apparently it's like a place of like sorrow or tears or drought or hardship or something. And so it almost seems like it's kind of a symbolic way of describing life and the hardship, and maybe just like remembering that there's something to look forward to at the end of the pilgrimage. And like, oh God, like he's kind of saying in the beginning, like he's jealous for it. Like he wants to get to the end. He wants to get to the destination.
Yeah. It's like driving from, Alpine to downtown, right? You drive through the 67 to the 8, and you're going through El Cajon, through the Valley of Baca. To the ocean, and it's heaven. No.
To take the 8 all the way down 40 miles.
So hold on. I had another point on here. Sorry, I lost my spot.
But I mean, I was just sort of thinking for David too, if that is a translation, which I don't know, we should probably check on that. But if you were to take that translation of like, it's sort of a symbolic way of describing heaven, it almost seems like, David was describing just like that life is hard, but that he is thankful and he's giving praise through the hardship, looking forward to being in heaven with God and being in the presence of God. But like, he didn't have to wait to get to there also to experience God and to connect with God and be in a relationship with God either.
Yeah. In verse 7, I like how it talks about going from strength to strength, as we kind of go through life facing new challenges. That phrase, strength to strength, it's similar to glory, which is, it's 2 Corinthians, they mentioned that. And those words, glory to glory, for a while that kind of confused me when I was younger. I don't know why, but I didn't really understood it.
I think I'm still confused. I know I heard it once and I was like, that makes perfect sense.
That song, Glory to Glory. So we talk about that a lot. We sing it. And anyway, I researched it, kind of looked it up and wrote some notes on it. But basically, Paul talks a lot about this idea in Corinthians. And basically what he says is this phrase of glory to glory or strength to strength sums up the entire Christian life. It's basically the process of being sanctified on earth. Through challenges and processes, from strength to strength, glory to glory. And it's a cool idea. It's a cool thing to kind of dive into and to think about. But I like how it's mentioned again in verse 7.
Yeah. So wait, just one more time. What does glory to glory mean?
So the idea of glory to glory is basically the idea of going about our whole Christian life of being sanctified and redeemed as we go from challenges to overcoming, and basically the Christian life, the process of being more and more like Jesus and learning to love and live like him.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that.
Next section.
Okay, so now we're going through verses 8 through 12. This is the final section, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. He says, O Lord God of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O God of Jacob. Selah. Behold our shield, O God, and look upon the face of your anointed. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 outside. I would rather stand at the threshold of the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord gives grace and glory. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, how blessed is the man who trusts in you.
That's good. One thing that Mark had written down, or I had written down from Mark's notes, was he talks about in order to fully long for Jesus, we must be fully converted. And I think because he was talking about the idea of, for better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. And he was talking about, do we really believe that? Like we hear that, but do we actually like believe? Okay, God, I'd rather have one day in your presence than it's just a crazy thought. Yeah. And he was saying, in order to fully believe that, we have to be fully converted. And like the idea of being converted, he doesn't mean like, fully accepting God and like being fully a Christian. He's talking about in our hearts fully, the idea of having a renewed mind and fully, I don't want to say buying in, but really just, I guess, the Christian walk and following and loving God, kind of being fully like sold in on that, if that makes sense. The idea of like choosing that life and fully doing it, no matter what else comes your way, what other opportunity you may have, simply choosing God always. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's crazy, and I know there's the song on it, right? Better is one day, but
sing it for us. Go.
No, definitely not. But he says better is one day in your course than 1,000 elsewhere, and again, it's not very like symbolic. Like this is pretty literal, actually. Like David is actually declaring, God, I would rather be with you for one day in your presence than without you for 1,000 days. Yeah. And again, it just comes down to conviction. That's a nice thing to think and to agree with, but do you actually believe that? And then does your life reflect that? And that's a big challenge. Like you should ask yourself. I mean, I'm asking myself, like, geez, how often do I look forward to being in God's presence? Like how much do I want it? And how does my life also reflect against that? Like, would I rather be kind of in my life for 1,000 days than I would in God's, for one day? It's a hard kind of challenging question to ask yourself of just like, what do you believe basically? Where are you?
Yeah. Kind of, I mean, there's like the personal, like more intimate, side, but then I think of like corporately, like with the whole church. Right. It reminds me of the idea of comparing, like Sunday morning service to, like a sports arena. You have, right. You see these full-grown men, deck out in colors, and I'm someone that would do that. So, fully like all in on your team, the Celtics, what up?
Or like the Raiders, you got this full mask on.
Yeah, but the jerseys, and you're cheering and you're yelling, and you act like pretty crazy and childish. Some men do that in a sports situation, but then come to Sunday morning service, it's kind of like, arms crossed and we're quiet. Yeah. And like this kind of reminds me of that. Like, what if we could have 1,000 days, cheering on our sports team, or 1,000 day or one day in the presence of God? Like, what would we choose? And when you think about it that way, it's kind of like, like that's what David is saying. Like, I would rather have that than, this fun thing.
It reminds me of Mr. Newkirk, Ron Newkirk. Shout out to Ron.
You gotta stop saying shout out to Ron.
Dude, I love giving shout outs. It's so much fun. Anyways, I remember Ron gave a message one time, and it was like basically the whole like fan versus player idea, and basically challenging your level of commitment. But he's like, imagine, a lot of Christians are in the stadium, they're cheering for the team. Everyone feels like they're part of the team when it's like, oh, my team's the Chargers, or my team's the the Celtics or whatever. But like, you're not actually on the team. It's not really, you don't have any ownership of the team. You just like the team. But then you have the players who are in the game, and they are actually in the team. They are the team. And so basically, are you a fan or are you a player? Are you going to sit with your arms crossed, quiet in church, and then go home and live your life secularly? Or are you going to bring church outside of the church walls, and you're going to live life every day? Like David is saying, better is one day in your course than 1,000 elsewhere. Is church just a Sunday thing? Is Christianity just a Sunday thing, or is it an everyday thing?
And I like that you're saying that. And when you use the phrase like, is church like a Sunday thing or whatever, that's like a very common phrase we hear. Totally. But like the depth of that is in our hearts and how we actually live. Like, I mean, really, is church just like a Sunday thing? Yeah. And then, the rest of the week you live how you want to live. Like, I know that's a common statement, but like to think about that, like, I think a lot of people really do live that way, Right. And when I say a lot of people, I mean, I think it's easy even for like common devoted churchgoers. Like,
well, it's easy for me too.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say me too. It's easy to fall into that. And so that's kind of why, again, it's a common statement, but I think it really applies.
Yeah. And then going back to this whole theme of all the scriptures here, of David doing this every day. He has a crazy, like, again, this isn't just a Sunday thing for David. This is an everyday thing for David, that he's crying out to God and he's declaring his praise, and he's saying, God, I would rather be with you than anywhere else for a long time, basically.
Yeah, so the second half of verse 10, he says, I would rather stand on the threshold of the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. That's cool. Thinking about like just barely touching like the presence of God, barely
like not even being inside.
Like barely, not even being in his camp, just like right on the border. Like that's better than like dwelling with like, in the tents of the wicked. And I think of like common day terms. Okay, so saying like, Lord, I would be way more satisfied, barely experiencing your presence, barely, knowing you, than having a best friend that's who loves me and who supports me, but it's a bad influence, right? And so it's like, I don't know, it's real stuff and it's deep. But again, like, do we rather want that, than something else? But I think it's interesting. Yeah,
totally. I mean, when I read that, I was like, I think that's an easy one to kind of skip over, where you're like, oh, the threshold of God, like, and dwell in the tents of wicked, like, what the heck does that mean? But then when you think about, oh, he means like, even if I'm not actually with God, I'd rather just be near God or near a place of worship than anywhere else. Like, that's powerful. Basically, he's taking a whole nother level. Like, God, I would rather even just be close to you than be anywhere else. And again, it's challenging. Where would you rather be? At church? Or would you rather be in bed sleeping still? Would you rather be with this group of friends or with that group of friends? It's a nice challenge to have.
Yeah, and my last note was he mentions that the Lord does good for those that walk uprightly with him. And so it's not saying that, you love God, you're a Christian, he's going to do good for you. Those that walk and do what's right and live in a right way, those he will bless and those he will walk with. That's cool.
Yeah, I love that. Totally. And I mean, I think also going back to the beginning, he says, hear my prayer, Lord God Almighty, listen to me, God of Jacob, look on our shield, O God, look with favor on your anointed one. And also it's, again, this is a hard one and it's an easy one to skip over, but he's basically saying, God, listen, he's not just kind of like saying it to kind of check the box. He's saying, God, listen to me. I'm telling you, I'm just declaring it in front of you right now. I would rather be with you. I want to be with you right now. All of me is with you. My desire is for you. But I just think it's funny. He says, hear my prayer. Like literally it says, listen to me. I don't know if I've ever said to God, hey, God, listen to me. You know what I mean? It's kind of a funny thing to say, but really he's trying to evoke a response from God. He's trying to really get in touch with God, and that's pretty deep.
And he's doing that by giving praise, and he's doing that by like declaring, kind of like we said earlier, all this stuff is good, and it's good to think about it all and to, have thoughts of God, like, I want your presence, I want to be with you, but I think it's important to declare it and to praise it and to do it. That's David's way of pleading and asking God to meet with him is, through declaring the praise.
Totally. Yeah. So that's a powerful passage. It's Psalm 84. Is that the whole chapter?
It's quick. I mean, I think it's 12 verses.
Yeah, but 12 verses. But I mean, there's so much there. And again, I think this just goes to show, like, everyone, all of us, we have so much to learn and develop on our skills of studying the Bible and really like diving into it. Because if we were just to read through this, it would probably take like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And like, you're missing out on so much if that's all you're doing is just reading it. Really diving in, devoting yourself to it, asking God to reveal what he's trying to show you in this passage reveals 1,000 times more than you would have before.
Yeah, it's a good point. We, our church did like a reading plan for the New Testament a couple years ago. And I was like, I want to do that. And I think I'm naturally like a goal-oriented person. So if I have a goal to read, 3 chapters a day, like, I'm going to do it. And
it's going to happen.
It's a great thing for me to keep on track with. And so we did it, and it was great. Like, I read through it, and I felt accomplished. But at the end of it, I was like, what did I really? Yeah, what really came from reading? Which it wasn't that hard, but I think it's like Matthew, or I think it's Romans. Like, there are some chapters that are long, like 50, really, 60 verses. So you're reading if you don't skim, you're reading a long time. And so, but more recently, as I've been reading through, certain chapters of the Bible, I'm not really going about like the mentality of, okay, I'm going to read, 2 chapters or 1 chapter, just literally reading it, soaking it in. And so sometimes I don't finish a chapter. Sometimes it's half a page, just taking a verse, thinking about it, writing down thoughts. It's good to do.
Yeah.
A mentor of mine said that he's going through Psalms and he's journaling every chapter. And so as he reads, he'll write in his journal how it's speaking to him that day. And that's cool. Like, that's a cool way to really pull from what he's reading,
Yeah, totally. And we should do an episode just purely to devotions. But I like that because I remember in high school, Jason Botticelli, one of our kind of high school church leaders, he was telling us Shout out to Hey, I didn't say it that time. He was telling us at a camp, he was like, look, because, we have to do our devotions every morning at camp, and a lot of kids didn't know like what to do or how to do it. They never done before. So he's like, look, just read 1 verse. He's like, I'm not a smart guy. He's really smart now, but he's like, when I was first starting, he's like, look, I'm not like the most avid reader. So I would literally just sit down and read 1 verse. Just read it a couple times, think about how it applies to me. What is God trying to reveal to me? And again, I think it comes back to the idea of it doesn't matter how much you read. It just matters what God is showing you through what you're reading. So even if it's just 1 verse, or in this case, if it's just 12 verses, like that's a lot. And there's so much to unpack in every single verse. And even lately I've been listening to, I basically just been doing my devotions audibly through this app called Dwell. Shout out to Dwell app. We'll have that on our...
Gonna look it up right now.
Yeah, our /favorites. If you go to cultivateandkeep.com/favorites, there's an apps section. You can find it there. They had a big Kickstarter. I was one of the earlier ones, kind of a techie guy. But anyways, so I've been listening. They have kind of like reading plans, but they also have like basically the whole Bible read by professional readers with professional musicians in the background. And I've just been doing like 1 chapter a day. And it's like 3 minutes when you read through it. But then I'll just click play again, click play again, click play again. While I'm walking my dog, Remy, I'll listen to this. And then I'll really just like soak it in. Like, wait, what is he saying there? Because if you're not reading it and you're listening to it, it kind of forces you to pay attention a little more. But that's been really powerful for me and just kind of changing my perspective on
that's cool
on how devotions work.
I just downloaded it.
Ayo.
Done. Got it.
Go download them. Maybe one day we can get a little like relationship going with them. That'd be fun.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, that's really good stuff. Psalm 84.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's it. I mean, yeah,
that is it. So thanks for listening. Yeah. Subscribe to the podcast. I was thinking. So actually, when we're recording this, we're going to be launching the podcast today, even though this will be later on in the queue. But we have some ideas of we're going to do a little social media post, a little video, and send some emails and stuff. But like really the only way that this is going to grow and get in the ears of other people is if you tell someone. So the biggest favor you can do us is just to tell someone, send a link. Hey, check this out and, been listening to this. You can say that we're goofy or whatever it is, but we hope that it's helpful. And if it is, we just ask that you share it with someone, and that would help us grow a lot.
Cool. Yeah. So go ahead and email us at cultivateandkeep.com. You can like us on Instagram, follow on Facebook.
Yep, we're on all the podcast apps. If someone asked, iTunes, Spotify.
You can subscribe, leave
Breaker,
a 6-star review.
6-star review. Yep. Tell us what you think about our intro and outro music, even though that's not like important at all. But we think it's pretty good.
That's pretty important.
Yeah, I like it. So yeah. Anyways, we will see you next episode. Until then, deuces.